welcome everybody. It is Thursday's training. What's today's date, Leandro? The 15th. Man, I got a birthday coming up.
I know.
On the 20th. I mentioned that last time. I'm pretty self-serving on these things. 24th of October, if you don't have gift ideas, as I mentioned before, I will be registering at more than likely sports type equipment type places. Dick's is a great place to shop for me. If you need more tips and suggestions, please feel free to raise your hand. I'm happy to give those birthday suggestions to you. Actually, I don't want anything. I'm a pretty simple guy. All right, so let's get started. Thank you again for joining, whether you're joining live or whether you're watching this on replay. This is Quadrant 2 activity, and if you don't know what Quadrant 2 activity is, it's in one of the first 2 or 3, maybe first 1 or 2 training sessions. Actually, I think it's number 2. It's where we get, the first one was mindset, the second one that is now let's get active. We got the right mindset, let's get active. So Quadrant 2 is that quadrant where we spend time meditating. If you're a person of faith, certainly prayer time is Quadrant 2, planning, relationship building, self-development. I mean, those kinds of activities serve most of the time to keep us out of Quadrant 1. Now, we know Quadrant 1 is going to happen. That's important and urgent, right? You know, the daughter's going to call with a blown tire and you got to stop everything and go help. That happens. But, you know, if your car runs out of gas, if you'd have spent a little time in Quadrant 2 making sure that gas, like get it while it wasn't urgent but was still important, then you wouldn't have found yourself in Quadrant 1. So thank you so much for joining you. I do give a lot to these, both in preparation and the energy in which I communicate with you, because I really do respect those that do sacrifice time doing something that probably would be more fun than this, or any kind of self-development or sacrificial activities that we do to get where we want to go. I was talking with my daughter yesterday from college, and you know, she doesn't like some of the classes that she's taking right now. She's technically a junior in college, and she's not yet to just those straight, she's got to do a few more, what do they call those, rec classes, rec courses, before she gets to her real major courses where she's, you know, has a ton of interest. And we were talking about how, you know, winners seem to be a little bit more okay with engaging in activities that they don't like, not because they enjoy the activity, but they enjoy the result that it produces. Certainly I feel that way at least 2 to 3 times a week, Leandro, when I meet with my trainer. Most of those activities, although his website does say that the exercises are fun and engaging, I call BS on that, and I did so to him, because they're not fun, they're not engaging, but they are producing a result that I'm looking for. So even though I don't enjoy the activity, I do kind of look forward to going, right? It's a dichotomy, like who looks forward to torture, but you know, when it makes you better, so be it, right? Okay. All right, usually I start with a review. I really don't need to review anymore at this point, I think, and I started talking a little bit about it and touching upon it in the last chapter, and even a little bit less in the chapter before on, to me, these principles and all success principles, there are only so many, right? It's not an endless stream of principles. There's really only so many. And to me, it's kind of like a Mexican restaurant, right? I mean, they only have 9 ingredients, but they have 32 different dishes. So they're just using the ingredients and putting them together differently, or they use 5 of the same ingredient and use corn instead of flour, and all of a sudden it's an enchilada and not a burrito, right? So we're really getting into, because we're near the end of this book, we're getting into the point where there's the success principles have already been articulated. Now it's more like, how do we use them? What's the goal? What are we trying to achieve? And this chapter is about inspiring people. And, you know, it's a chapter, when you look at it, you think, am I an inspirational person? Am I supposed to be an inspirational person? I know that this book is talking a lot about public speaking. Does he mean, you know, can I be inspiring as an individual? And I say, yes, you can. You absolutely can. And I think sometimes when we think of the word inspire, we think of something, was that in the, oh, Leandro. Oh, Leandro, you tricked me. Okay. So when I think of inspire, I mean, I think of huge, magnanimous personalities in history and in my life. And yes, we can be those people, but I think the more meaningful inspiration is when people are moved or influenced by us personally. And typically for me, I've always taught and thought, and I've gone through it, so I've lived it, that, you know, actions speak a lot louder than words. So a lot of times when I'm always trying to influence the people around me, certainly the people I love, and I don't walk around thinking about it all the time, but what I do think about is I want to be the best version of me. Because I heard you know, was that, I don't know if you guys saw it on Goldcast, there's a guy who talks about the third grade cook is the smartest guy in his house, and it's his dad, and it's an amazing story. Or it's what are they, the speech at the commencement speech at a graduation, and he talks about his dad getting up at 3 a.m. every day and going to work in a couple of jobs. And, you know, it's a really inspirational talk. And the wife asked one day, why do you do this? And he said, I just hope that my boys get a glimpse of excellence. So he was really engaging in these principles so that he could be a model to his sons, right? He had three of them. One of them's a judge. One of them's, they're three amazing people. And he would say that they're not the smartest. He's got 7 degrees. His brother's a judge. His other brother's this, and they still weren't the smartest person at the table. The third grade dropout was the cook, his dad. So hopefully we're engaging in these principles to better our own life. But listen, you never know who's watching. You remember the 2-bag story. You don't know who's driving by. You don't know who's walking by and sees you and is influenced and is motivated and is inspired by you. I don't know if you know, the quick rendition of the 2-bag story is I'm driving along the road in Nicaragua and there's a rice factory and everybody's moving at a certain pace. I'll keep this one brief as opposed to going into it. And they're all carrying these 50-pound bags, right? And they're all moving. It's like an ant farm. There's a lot of people moving at one pace, and there's one guy that's moving double the pace, and he actually had 2 bags on him. So he has become known as the 2-bag. And I saw that on my way up to the mountains to go on missions work where I was training and teaching for a week. That guy got brought up 13 times in 7 days. That he inspired me because I saw what he was doing. He has no idea that some gringo driving by at 30 miles an hour on the Pacific coast, or it's not that it's on the highway, is inspired and motivated by him. And it was because of his ethic, his hard work. He stood out among his peers. So when we do that, we become inspirational, we become influential. The definition of it, Leandra, I'm already long-winded. I am so much further where I wanted to be right now. I mean, I'm not nearly as far where I wanted to be, excuse me. So I'll try to rip through this. I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter so people will be more motivated to, you know, clue into them. It's hard to open something that says it's an hour and 4 minutes.
At least it's valuable information.
Oh man, hour and 4 minutes. All right. So the definition of inspire is to fill with the urge or ability to fill someone with the urge or the ability to feel something, especially to do something creative. So the inspiration formula that John Maxwell talks about is what they know plus what they see, right? What I just talked about, plus what they feel equals inspiration. So he breaks that down through the book. And what I did is I started kind of working through it, and it's like, hey, does this sound familiar? Let's first talk about the first portion of the formula, what they know. They want to know that you're on their side, right? They need to know that you're caring or looking for the same solutions that they're looking for. And we've talked about this. In fact, on Monday, Dana talked a lot about it. And Dana's one of our, in fact, our most successful sales rep right now.
She's present.
Man, and I got to be honest with you. I was doing some reporting on, you know, like sales commissions lifetime. The amount of money she's made is really amazing and awesome. So anyway, she talked a lot about that call on Monday. Remember, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And he talks about this pathos, which is obviously a Greek word, which is connected to feelings, desires, wishes, fears, and passions. So does that sound familiar? How many times have I said we are not analytical beings first? Do we have an analytical component to the human condition? No question. But we're an emotional being first. And I think a lot of times when we're trying to, you know, sell something, accomplish something, influence somebody, we go in with this idea that we need to have all this information and we need to be, you know, so astute and all this. And it really doesn't matter if they don't know that you're on their side. If they don't know you give a rip about what they're going through. And we've talked about, you know, obviously this can't be a 4-hour training, but we've talked about ways to let people know through your authentic care for them that you do care for them, right? Body language, positive, you know, we've talked about all those things. So again, it's more of a review that they really, what they want to know is that you're on their side. Self-centered people don't typically connect. Can we agree on that? I mean, if you've been with somebody who's all they're doing is talking about themselves, they're not gonna, there's no connection that can be there. We've got to put, and I've said this before, and I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but man, it's the real deal. And to some of you it won't, to some of you it's a way of life, and in putting the cares and concerns of others before ourselves. Some of us are like that to a fault, right? Too much of anything's probably not a great thing. So to be a caring and wonderful person is one thing, but then you also, that breeds, you know, people pleaser, you know, people that are always in quadrant one because they don't put problems where they lie, right? Which is where the problem exists. They try to own it or grab it or do. So anyway, quote, this is a quote out of the book: a gossip is one who talks about others. A bore is one who talks about themselves. And a brilliant conversationist is one who talks to you about yourself. I've told you the greatest sound of anybody's to ear is the sound of their own name. When they have a story, let them be on stage, be an active listener, right? Ask great questions. Then they begin to understand that you are on their side, right? So the next thing is, what are they thinking? Well, we talked about finding common ground. So be observant. There's ways to be observant with someone without any verbal communication, and identify some things that may be important to them right off the bat, to try to identify common ground between us and them. Sometimes the experience in and of itself is the only common ground we can ever find, right? Complete diversities. But look at keychains. Look for lapel pins. Look at the kind of car they're driving. If you're in their home or around them, it becomes a lot easier, right? If you're in their office, look at pictures. Do you see family? Ask questions. Be genuinely inquisitive about people. That causes people to do two things. One is talk about themselves, which is what we all want to do. And two, it puts people at ease. So listen before we share what we think. I remember a long time ago, I went to my father, Leandro, and I was like, I got to talk to Stacy. I got this issue. I got to talk to Stacy. I got to talk to Stacy. And this is what I got to say. And he said, well, just be mindful that when you talk to her about that, she might have something to say to you about that, might have her own opinion, right? Which is simple but great advice. So what I did on that is I kind of started that with a question with her. And lo and behold, it became a conversation with her to me. But it had to be had. And thankfully, my dad gave me some decent advice, because I realized that it's not enough to say something if a person is not in a place to receive, right? And that's why we're timing, right? We talked about the law of timing. Timing's everything. If we're not inquisitive, if we're not where we're supposed to be, meaning if our mind is elsewhere, we can't really be as observant as we need to be, as careful as we need to be. And when I say careful, I don't mean like careful like where I step. I mean full of care, right? So be a great listener. Be an active listener. Be mindful of your body language. And I mentioned it before. I didn't bring my phone to this, not because I'm a great communicator and didn't want to bring it, because I forgot it. But if I had it and you were talking to me, tell me, I mean, we've all been there. You're sharing something pretty personal or somewhat authentic and personal, and they pick up their cell phone. You're done. So that doesn't happen if you're legitimately interested, right? So if the approach is right, where the bat hits the ball, you being a communicator will happen automatically, so to speak. I'm moving kind of quickly through this because I want to, but I also want to pause, Leandro. Is there anybody, anything, any cares, concerns, errors, omissions, additions?
Everybody is engaged and everybody is welcoming.
We're ready to go. All right. The next thing he says is have high expectations of people. Man, that hit me a little bit, because I have a tendency, Leandro, to, especially after I'm able to be around a person, to make somewhat of an assessment, mental acuity, common ground, not an analytical one, but kind of a subconscious, here's how I feel. And although I am someone who has seen and still does more in people than they see in themselves, I think over time, Leandro, and this is just me reflecting on me, I think over time, when you have these, I have this saying that this is expectations and this is reality. This landscape in here, this real estate, is called disappointment. So when you see more of somebody and you know that they can do more with themselves and they choose not to, it does create a disappointment. And I think when I read this, again, it caused me to think of some real world instances where I maybe stopped doing that. Not holistically, but to specific people. Does that make sense? And I don't want to do that. And I think that I've kind of migrated to that over a course of long periods of time being disappointed, because although there are great successes, we all know that the percentages are low, right? I mean, there's a reason there's the other 1%. There's a reason that, 20% of people, the 20-80 rule, right? There's always a reason. So I just want to encourage all of you to really see the best in people, and you will find people that come along that 2 out of 10, that 1 out of 10, whatever that number is, that 3 out of 10, whatever that number is, that are going to rise and become better and do things. And honestly, when you guys send me little notes that this has caused you to engage in an activity, man, that's what it's all about. Because, we have thousands of reps and I've maybe got 3 or 4, not that I'm asking for more, but that's the ratio, right? Thankfully, I'm not personally intimate or have a relationship with thousands. If I did, it would be a huge amount of disappointment. So, have high expectations of people. And to do that, we must have high expectations of ourselves. There's no way you're going to see the best in people if you see the worst in ourselves. And I know it's easy because I saw a speech once and I totally agree that the negative experiences hit us and stick to us like Velcro. But the positive experiences and the positive words and the positive things in life seem to kind of slip off us like a Teflon. And I believe that. I believe we're inclined to see the negative in ourselves. Certainly I am. I mean, it's been a lifelong struggle to build my self-worth. It really has. I mean, I think I've told you guys, I've opened up a little bit on the household I came from. And, I certainly didn't have it as bad as most, so I don't need any grief, but I definitely was one of those people who was taught how not to do something in most ways. And so anyway, so to see people, we have to we have to believe in ourselves before we believe in them. And here's how we do it. I mean, if you want to make a difference, they're watching you. Do you have a dream? Have you defined what you need to do or what you think you need to do to get there, remembering that it all becomes clearer the further down the road we get. So continuing to move and take a step is so important. Are you creating goals? Are you writing them down? Are you sharing them with people? Are you active every day and doing the toughest stuff first? Are you spending time in quadrant 2? Do you care about people? Listen, if you can't do this, if you're not doing this, it's almost like not using the product and trying to sell it. You're not authentic. You have to first, I've told you, part of being a great connector is people want to be, there's an attraction factor. And one of the greatest attraction factors ever is results. Just winning, right? Doing what you say, saying what you do, and getting results, finding ways to win. That matters. It really matters. And I see so many people, and I've talked about this all the time, that are very active, but they're not very productive. Right? They're always in quadrant 1, always putting fingers in leaky holes, trying to, just react to everything and doing these things that very few people do, but that are amazingly consistent among those top percentage of people. They say the same thing. As I said in the beginning of this training, the principles are all the same. To me, it's just Proverbs rewritten 1,000 different ways, right? In 1,000 different perspectives, but it goes back to the same truth principles. They don't change. Are you engaging in them? It starts there. I know we're talking about having high expectations, and we have to have high expectations of ourselves, which means we have to have a higher self-worth. And you might say, well, Matthew, you mentioned you had a low self-worth. What did you do to raise your self-worth? Well, first, I would say I did a lot of reading about the truth about me. Now, my source of that truth might be different than yours, but certainly it's out there. Because we hear so many negative things every day about who we are as people, what our country is, how our communities are, how awful everything is. And we need to see, read, feel, hear, speak truth. Association's another big one, man. Be around people that make you feel good about you. I mean, Honestly, I don't have time for somebody. Matter of fact, I had a friend. We were playing golf a lot, man. I mean, my wife she knows, and my daughter, everybody knows who this guy is. And just it wasn't out of nowhere. I mean, I saw little things where he was kind of a hater. He would say things that were, negative about me. And I just laugh it off, ball breaking guys out on a golf course. But then it started to turn like it was kind of like I didn't see the humor in it, right? And you know what? I hadn't played golf with that guy in months. That day I decided I am not. Life's too short to be around a negative person, and life's too short to be around somebody who's going to identify the negative in me. I know I have flaws. I don't need to be around somebody pointing them out all day, right? Shoot, my wife doesn't even do that. You think I'm going to hang around some little dude? And he was a little squirrely dude too. I'd have whooped his ass. No, I'm just kidding, guys. And it was hard for me too, because he's a non-believer, and I want to associate, and again, I'm not the Bible thumper, but my way of thinking is if someone's attracted to me and I'm attracted to them, that maybe I'm the two-bagger. Maybe I can be a two-bagger, right? I don't know. People need to see your conviction. They need to see the evidence of a big why. If you're going to inspire somebody, you can't buckle every time you have adversity. If you're going to inspire somebody, you can't walk around scared. You have to have a faith in something, even if it's your own activity. I mean, you've got to have a big why. It's got to resonate. And people, you might say, well, Matthew, how do they know if you have a big why? Because they see what you're willing to go through to get it. They see that your activity and your response to adversity is different. And therein lies the attraction factor. I mentioned it last time. Be kind to people. Be forgiving of people. Identify yourself by the things that you like, not the things that you don't like. Why do I say all these things? Because you would be a light in a really dark place. You would be different based on the tapestry of our environment right now. You would stand out. We will stand out. And it's like the two-bagger, right? You see a bunch of people doing one thing and one person doing something radically different. And I tell you where that's found a lot of times is in forgiveness. I mean, forgiveness is for you and for me. It's not, if I forgive Leandra for something, I'm not doing him any favors. That's for me. So, but if you start seeing people who understand that, man, what a powerful movement that could be, right? If we just operated like that. And I know I'm a dreamer, but that's okay. All right, the next thing I got here is to read a quote on page 209. Josh Shelter. Oh, this is from Lyndon B. Johnson. What convinces is conviction. Believe in the argument you're advancing. If you don't, you're as good as dead. The other person will sense that something isn't there. And no chain of reason, no matter how logical, elegant, or brilliant, will win your case for you. I totally agree. If you don't believe that CBD is the best thing since canned peaches, you're going to have a problem. And if you don't believe that, it's because you don't have a story yet. If you don't have a story yet, it's because you haven't read someone else's story and been inspired by it. Stories are what's inspiring. Meaningful, authentic stories of reality and winning and success and hitting a goal, whether it be, I want to make a certain amount of money, whether it be, I want to spend this amount of time with my kids, whether it be, I want to make this amount of sales. All of it is based on the same hub. Does that make sense, Leandro? I feel like sometimes I'm all over the place because in my mind, I'm like, I feel like one of those old, you know what I'm thinking of, is one of those old telephone things, like, oh, hold on, yeah, like every, that's why my brain, but it's also like that LED, remember that light set where you would poke the holes and it would turn into a picture, bright light, yes. Like that's what it is, like, but they're like all over the place. Cut that part out, would you? Leandro, he didn't say yes, he would do it. All right, let's move on. We are moving along. Hey, we're at 3:30. I think I might have called that. I feel pretty good about it. I'm sweaty though. It's hot in here today. There's a lot of lights in here. All right. Any errors, additions, cares, concerns? All right, goes back to what I just said. We have to have credibility. I mentioned it before. Let's do what we say what we do. And here's the reality. When you're intentional, when I am intentional about that, I realize where I missed during the day. And the more intentional I get, the quicker I realized I missed. And then eventually I get to the place where hopefully more often than not, I'm remembering before I actually do it. Does that make sense? Like, sometimes I'll tell my son, yes, tomorrow we'll do that. And then the next day I look and I have something scheduled. Do you know how hard it is for me to go to my kid and say, hey, I know I said that we would do this, but we can't. So therein lies a lesson for me. Before I commit to things, I need to make sure that I can do them, right? Because in the moment, I just want to, heck yeah, I want to be with you. Like, I'm looking for these opportunities. So that's an odd way, but it's just, I guess my way of saying it is, when we're intentional about some of the principles that we want to live by, we are pricked when we miss through the day. And it causes us to become better and more developed at being better at that. Own your part in everything, even if it's being at the wrong place at the wrong time. We've talked about this, not giving away our dominion or our authority, right? Never be the person like, well, that they made me do this. You remember that story I told you about the meeting I was at, and there was some guys like, my wife pushing my button. She does this, pushing my button. She's trying to push my buttons all the time. Guy in the back of the room, after he sits down, says, you need better button covers, right? It's like, how are you going to get any better if like all the onus is on someone else? We know we can't control them. We can only control ourselves. Remember the T-sheet? What can I control? What can't I control? Man, if the wife is trying to push the buttons, you better get some good button covers. That's true, because you ain't going to stop it. And I would tell you this, man, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. So I get it right fast. Because if mommy ain't happy, at least in my house, nobody's happy. That's what 21 years of marriage will teach you. You want a tip? There it is. Okay. It says ultimately, each of us should strive to be the message, to live the message. And that's what I got out of it. I just reflected back. Again, this whole thing is all about reflecting back on the principles that drive these concepts. And remember, I told you I had a mentor one time. I was like, how do you become great at, business, spiritual life and family life? How do you become great at each of these? And he's like, it's not each of these, Matthew, it's one. Meaning, live the business. If you believe that this can help people, there's nobody you wouldn't tell. I used to be in real estate, never proselytized a church member. Not that I'm saying that's wrong. If I really don't. Just for me personally, I was convicted. I was like, church is church. If somebody approaches me, that's fine. I'll be happy to work with them. I felt like I was very good at what I did, but I wasn't going and saying, hey, I can help you. I can help you. I can help you. And back then I wasn't thinking about people, Leandro. I was thinking about me. I wanted to make money. I had none of this. I hadn't done, this is early 20s, mid 20s. And I just remember that. And I thought, you know what, if I really felt like I could benefit somebody, like if I had that real paradigm, that would have been a non-issue for me, right? So it really depends on the perspective you have. I hope you live in the business, wear the shirt, carry the tumbler, share your passion, share your story. If you see somebody in pain, it's had back pain and you have never had it, but you've heard Todd's story, share his story. Man, be the person, because you never know listen, there's a saying I heard long ago from a great mentor of mine, and it was true in that business. It's not true in every business, but it's damn true in this business too. And that is, you're one relationship away from your business changing. One relationship can change everything. Not only in your business, but your personal life, your marriage, you just don't know. So if you're always ready, if you're always authentic, if you're living what you're teaching, living what you're preaching, living what you're thinking, then that authenticity is attractive to people. All of a sudden, you become a little bit different because you are saying what you do. You are doing what you say. Does that make sense? So I know that this is about sales, but if we again, it's about the approach. If you're not balanced, if your hands aren't in the right place, when it comes time to communicate with people and try to connect with people, if your approach is right, that connection is where the ball meets the bat. That will work. But you have to have faith in that process, that farmer's mentality, right? I'm going to start lifting weights now, but I know I may not see results for another 30 days. I know I may have to go endure some really rigorous activities that I don't really enjoy on a faith that it's going to produce a result that I want it to produce. Hopefully we have enough credibility in our organization to where you hear some of these concepts. You're like, man, I don't know yet. I've never tried, but I trust the guy, right? I trust that it'll work. I got enough credibility. I got a book, I got resources. I get to that point where I have a buy-in, right? And that's where we have to get. Every great team has to buy into the philosophy and the concept. Thankfully, this isn't a team created concept. These were created thousands of years ago. These principles we operate on, they're just articulated differently. All right.
Now, before you go, Vivian Santos she's saying, we call it the one. Treat everyone as they are one, and they just may be.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing that you brought that up. Who said that?
Vivian Santos.
So Vivian, listen to this. I was at our church once, and our pastor was doing a thing about there is someone out there that is designed for you to interact with and influence, for our cause, right? And I thought that Goffin dude was that dude. I have it. If I wish I had my phone, I have it's a business card they gave that says one to remind you, right? So I put it in the back of my phone. It's got a clear case. And it's been there for months. And I thought he was it. So that was I didn't share remember I told you I was like, there was a conflict there. That's why. So I don't even know if I did the right thing there. You don't know. So there's more than the data, right? There's a personal intuition and with gut.
If it's meant to be, it will come back.
Oh, I totally agree with that. And I feel I actually am, boy, this is getting personal. I actually am glad that I was convicted by it. You know what I mean? That I had the sensitivity to that. Kind of like me being grateful for being grateful. Right? And that's another thing. In fact, what an amazing segue. I didn't even know it. It says we've talked about placing value on people. Well, we must do that by being grateful for them. There's some people that are more easily. There's some people that you're more grateful to have in your life than others, right, Leandro? But I think if we find a way, and I do, again, I am, of all my flaws, one of the things I'm most thankful for is the fact that I do kind of always have this grateful feeling. Even the guy that I told you about complimented Great one day, he says, you're the most grateful guy I've ever met. I was like, that might be the greatest compliment you've ever given me. Because I was just grateful to be grateful, right? I'm happy it's not lost on me, right? And I'm happy that even though sometimes I feel pain, I'm happy that I'm sensitive to it. Like, I'm grateful for that. The worst would be to have a hardened stance towards it and not be sensitive, because then I don't think we're malleable. I think we're rigid in how we approach things. And we talked about the fallacy of being rigid in our responses to things, right? To allow emotion to help us become a better me. And I think that's a great example of it. That little story is actually the perfect example. People want to feel gratitude, and I talk about this a lot. There's just not enough of it. So that's one way that we can be different and be viewed different and kind of be a two-bagger, is just by living a grateful life. I think I've told the story once about when I was 17 or 18, we went to Ocala for a funeral for my second uncle or whatever, who's we walked in and we were a little late, and he had just began to eulogize his 9-year-old daughter. And it was very emotional. I was an emotional kid too back then. I wasn't, even though I was an idiot, I was very sensitive. And he inspired me because his whole eulogy was about how grateful he was for those 9 years he had with his daughter. And I got to be honest, I may not still be there, but man, did it change how I thought about things. What an amazing perspective. What an amazing, accurate, true, non-manipulative perspective. So it's almost like the person who goes, oh, my car's a hunk of crap. And the other guy goes, man, I'm so glad my car gets me to work. I'm so glad I don't have to ride a bus. I'm so glad I don't have to ride a bike. So it really matters about gratitude is easily found based on proper perspective. Gratitude is easily found based on proper perspective. Please have the perspective of gratitude. And if you ever need a good beacon, at least something to strive for, even though, like I said, I don't believe and I would never want to know. Thankfully, I don't have to. Both my kids are past 9. But even now, I don't know that I'm there, but what an amazing thing to strive for, right? What an amazing perspective to strive for. Of all the virtues, this is a quote, of all virtues, gratitude is probably the most neglected and least expressed. And I believe that. Sometimes it's, just being lazy. I mean, I try to go out of my way. I got a good story. I remember one time we were in college and I was living with a roommate, and Stacy, I got sick, and Stacy came over and made me breakfast. And I got done with my breakfast, and I wasn't thinking about anything. Stood up, kissed Stacy on the cheek. This is when we were in college. And I said, thank you for making me breakfast. And KJ, who's the girl I lived with, platonic, KJ's like, you guys are going to make it. Literally said that, right? Just because I thanked her. Like, to KJ, that was different. Just saying thank you for a meal, right? That changed me. That moment changed me. And I never forgot it. I could still see Stacy, if and when you watch this, I can literally see where we were sitting. At that little table. Remember, my knee was busted, so my bedroom was kind of right behind the kitchen. Just be grateful. And I learned this too. And listen, I have my perspective is the only one I have. So I don't like that I have to talk about myself a lot. But I remember, my wife to me is, and I've said it since day one, she's the most beautiful person I've ever met in person, right? I mean, I'm just being honest, right? She's the most beautiful. And to this day, she is. And I remembered one day, and I don't know why it hit me, but I looked over, and man, sometimes I look at her and I'm like, God bless, she's just amazing. And I thought, what, maybe I ought to tell her every now and again when I actually experienced this thought. And I did start doing that. Man, did that help. Things went a lot better for me after that. Now, I never do it. First of all, I never would. I actually think my wife is most beautiful when she doesn't have makeup on. I think she's beautiful in the morning. She finds that startling and weird, but I think so. So anyway, share what you think. I think a lot of the times we actually are thankful for something and we don't go the extra mile to say it. I think some people are a lot better than others. It's something I had to develop. Like, I had to be intuitive about it, or I had to be purpose driven about it. That's sad, but true. Anyway.
Dana,
okay.
Dana, she has a comment.
Yeah.
What Matthew said about one relationship can change your business is true. My relationship with Julia's mom completely changed my business.
Yep, great example.
But I had to step out of my comfort zone and reach out to her. I had so much faith that our 3,500 could make a difference, and that looked persistence over my fear reaching out.
Greatness, things outside of norms are outside of our comfort zone. We taught, man, adversity, it's such a different thought process. Let's make it relative to the funeral. Most people are going to go in and go, man, that sucks. What is he missing out on? He had the paradigm of, hey, I had this, right? That same greater proportion of people in the intuitiveness of the human condition is going to cause people to steer away from adversity and things that are tough. The people who have the right perspective, who appreciate, from an analogy standpoint, the 9 years, are the people that see the adversity as the opportunity. Opportunity can sneak in through the back door disguised as fear. It could be disguised as failure. It's all about perspective and how we view the things that are happening. I mean, I still am surprised. I actually, it's sad. I'm actually surprised when I throw a ball in the air and a male over the age of 7, 10 can't catch it. Like, I know that it's true. No, they're not lesser people. That's just the way to me, if you threw a ball, it's like, I catch it, right? I'm almost as surprised when I see people that have no gratitude in life and feel a victim. It's like, I don't get it. So the things that we do really well, I think we have a tendency to look at other people and not have value in them because of that. And what was it today? Matt, on my trainer today. Oh, I should pull it up. Darn it, I wish I could remember. If I can remember it, I will. But let me finish it. His last thing is give an action plan. Now his thing, and I've been in his or not his sermon, but I've been at his speeches, and he does do this. He has you write down. He put it in the book, things that you need to learn, things that you need to teach, and another thing, things you need to study or something. So you put the different alphabetical letter around all your notes. Like you go through all your notes. You go, this is something I need to learn well. This is something I need to teach because I know well. And then the third criteria, whatever it was. And then he said, then now you go and I want you to identify the one that's most important of each category. And then within the next 24 hours, take action on each of those three. So he's given them something to do. That's in a public speaking venue, which is not really appropriate for what we're talking about. Unless you're a public speaker or plan to be, then that's a great tip. But for a person, I just thought of what I call BAM-FAM. B-A-M-F-A-M. You ever heard of BAM-FAM? Book a meeting from a meeting. Book a meeting from a meeting. Don't ever leave somebody without something to do and a reason to contact them again and the time and date you're going to contact them. You will be shocked at how that will really progress the interactions that you have and the effectiveness of the interactions that you have, because you're setting a tone for a purpose-driven conversation. Typically, I'm looking for something that I need to do. It depends. If it's a lead-oriented situation, I'm looking for them to do something, right, to further qualify themselves as a better prospect, or at least show their hand on what type of prospect that they are. But that was something that I learned long ago. It really, really helped. So I know that if you implement that, if you're intentional about that, it will really help you.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that?
Oh, yes, I can. Thank you. Man, that's awesome. I love that they can get in. It's called BAM-FAM, B-A-M-F-A-M. Book a meeting from a meeting. Book a meeting. It could be a phone call. It could be an email. Whenever you interact with somebody and you get something back, always book a meeting from a meeting. Even if it's, hey, I'm not interested right now. Hey, no worries. Do you mind if I contact you in a month? And then tick your calendar. That's sales, old sales 101, right? So anyway, book a meeting from a meeting. Leave the interaction with something to do, some instruction for them, or hey, I'm going to get this information for you. I'm going to talk to so-and-so. I'm going to look into this. I'm going to contact corporate and I'll get back to you. Is today good or is tomorrow better? I always offer two selections. Hey, is typically Wednesday good for you or is Thursday better? Thursday. Are you a morning or evening person? Evening. Great. I got a 4 or a 6 work better for you. That's literally how you should walk through scheduling time with somebody. Give them 2 options. I mean, it's, we're just playing into human condition, right, Leandro? We say it all the time. Put yourself on the right side of human condition. So book a meeting from a meeting, and I always offer, multiple slots. So I'm not trying to pigeonhole them. Hey, is Tuesday or Thursday good? Well, Fridays are typically better. Oh, me too. Mornings or evenings or afternoons, whatever. But really be intentional about building your schedule of contacts with people. I want to ward against, I talk about quadrant 2 a lot. Don't spend too much time there. You've got to be active. And if you really want to inspire people, you got to get results, right? I mean, there's only so long people are going to listen to you. And if you don't have some kind of result to show them, you're going to lose their interest and you're not going to be inspired at all. You can always inspire people with your work ethic. You can always inspire people with your kindness. You can always inspire people with your integrity, doing what you say, saying what you do, showing up on time, being prepared. Wherever you are, be there. Wherever you're going, get there on time. Just basic stuff puts us in such a much better position to make a connection with someone. And it's very, very hard to inspire somebody without a connection. Almost impossible. Anything, Leandro? Yes, you guys speak up if you want to too, but go ahead, Leandro, for now.
She's sharing one of the quotes I really like was, silent gratitude isn't much good to anyone. It's by Gladys Stern.
Silent gratitude isn't much good for anyone. John he calls little notes and gifts. He calls them the bow that he wraps around the gift of the time they have together. So back when I heard John the first time was about 15 years ago, and he said that if he heard something you know, he would give him a cassette tape. That's how long ago it was. Now it's like, hey, I do it now. If I watch a TED Talk or if I watch a Goldcast, video, and I think it's somebody, I'll send it to them. Hey, Marcus, just thinking about you when I saw this. Man, that means a lot to people. That means a lot to people. I've always said, and I'm joking about, I'm kind of joking about the birthday gifts. Do you know the best part of a gift for me is that I knew that someone either spent time scrolling around online or walking around a store with me in mind, thinking about me. Leandro, I can't tell you, but once you get old enough, right, the gifts, they're not all that great anyway. But the fact that my daughter, took time to write a letter for me, man, the contents of the letter are amazing, right? They're cherished, but there's so much meaning in the time, effort, sacrifice. I mean, she could be doing, my son too. My son writes me letters too. I don't want to single her out. But so when you show someone that you are thinking about them, I do it all the time, and not less now. I used to be really good at it, to where when I thought of someone, I'd shoot them a text. Hey, good morning, Leandro. Just want to let you know I'm thinking about you this morning. And I can't tell you how many times they would come back, and I mean this with all my heart. Can't believe you sent this morning. Really needed it. Not every time, but man, enough to where you see results from it. You're like, it gets addictive, right? So anyway, thank you. Yes. Silent gratitude doesn't really help people. Anybody else?
Bob, she also shared this acronym called ACT: Apply, Change, and Teach.
Apply, change, and teach. Yep, I love it. ACT, apply, change, and teach. See, that's crowd. That's the power of the crowd, man. I've never even heard that. I love it. Thank you very much. Who was that, Val?
Bob. Yes.
All right, anybody else?
No.
Man, here's what I like about, I think I've told you this. Actually, oh yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
You're live.
Treats.
Anyway, okay. The reason I love doing this on Thursdays is because actually I leave typically right after this. And this really drains you, so it's perfect, right? I'll leave you with this. We were driving on the interstate one day years ago, me and my dad, and it was in the middle. If you guys have ever been in Tampa, it's actually in the Brandon, at the Highway 60-75, right? So we're getting off 75, we're heading south, we're getting off at 60. And it's mid-August, late August. It's hotter than Hades. And we pull off, and I'm in the passenger seat, my dad's driving, and there's a guy on the left with a sign that says, we'll work for food. And he's standing in the sun. The way the sun's going, there's no shade on this side of the overpass, right? And my dad said, there's almost no job that I would not rather do than stand there in the heat. And I thought, man, me too. Like, I'd rather be doing something than just stand there in the heat. Like, what job would I not do? And I'd go, no, I'll just hold a sign in the heat. Like, none. And then he said, and a lot of times my dad said something that was wisdom driven. Most of the good stuff I got wasn't like, hey, Matthew, you got to hear this. It was almost like if I wasn't paying attention, I wouldn't have gotten it. And this is certainly one of those cases, because I remember he had his hand up here on the, holding onto his bar. This is, man, had to be 25 years ago. And he looked over and he goes, there's just no rest for a man who doesn't work. He said it through his window, kind of like he was talking to himself. There's no rest for a man who doesn't work. Woman too. This is, it's not gender specific. And I thought, man, that's damn right. When do you rest? I mean, have you ever gone out and worked 10 hours in the day and in the heat and just bump, and when you get home, I can't wait to rest. Conversely, yesterday, I was a little bit sick. I had a kind of a cough, and I just didn't want to come in because, what's going on, who knows? Ended up it's fine. It's allergy related. But I slept a lot yesterday, which I know my body needed, but I didn't rest well yesterday. You want to know why? Because I was laying around all day. I didn't work. I didn't do anything. So my sleep was restless. So let that be a kind of I use that as a motivator a lot of times. Man, I like working hard so that I can rest hard or play hard, because I'm the type of guy, if I'm out doing something and I know there's 10 things I should be doing, I can't really enjoy myself. Does that make sense? I'm not really sure how this came up or why this came up. Oh, it's because of the energy that I put forth. So it's like a perfect, like when I go home, I rest good after this on Thursdays. That's why I said that. You cut all that out though. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. I really enjoyed this time. This has been very, very good for me. It always is. I mean, that's why John, one of his thing is put a T next to all the notes where you can teach it, because teaching teaches, right? And so know that I absolutely, if I didn't get a thing out of this, I would still do it. But thankfully, I don't have to make that choice. I'm getting a lot out of it. I hope you are too. Thank you so much for joining me. And I know that the people that are on this call, hey, listen, we're doing a Monday Zoom. Monday Live is on Zoom now. And I think we got all the bugs worked out of it, but man, it was well received. I mean, there were some amazing comments about Dana. We're going to have, is it Jessica next week? I hope, did you hear my voice is cracked? I'm growing up, buddy. I'm growing up. All right, you guys. So hopefully we'll see you on the Monday. Not one thing works. It all does. I hope this is helping you. Go out and be active. Get out of your comfort zone. Seek to do things that, you're not comfortable with. Overcome your fears. Do what you need to find success. And hey, let's just go to the top together.